Alright, dit lyk vir my of ons gaan goeiemiddag sê. Now this afternoon we're going to speak English, so it's going to be one of those. First, I think, in this studio where it's properly English, but we don't have to do Oxford English, do we? I would like to...
Jy kan nie eers Oxford English doen, al probeer ek.
Nou, dis ons wonderlike voorreg, vriende, om to introduce Niehaus, that is no stranger to our radio and to our people on Facebook and so on. So maybe they can just give us feedback whether everything's fine and the sound is fine and all that. Ja, wonderlik. I haven't been in the studio for quite some time, so it's a bit strange for me as well. But a hearty welcome to both our guests. But Carl, I would like to would you kindly introduce our friend over there? And you in the camera, so that's all fine. And we're going to have a wonderful afternoon. As you know, I'm not a very formal person. I'd like to just be Louis, and that's the easiest way we can be. But we are tackling a very, very serious topic this afternoon concerning banks and the manipulation of the currency. And this has been in the news for quite a few days. But first of all, kindly introduce our wonderful guest with us this afternoon. Please, Carl.
Thank you, Louis. Ek gaan so lekker deur mekaar mengelmoes praat, Engels,
I believe
Afrikaans.
He's from the Free State, so it might work.
Wel toe ons instap.
Ek is nie van Free State af.
Nie van die Free State af, but you can.
Ek is van Limpopo af.
Ah, Limpopo. Okay.
En ek is van Tembisa.
Yeah, close by.
So Kempton Park is my dorp.
Wonderlik.
Ja.
So fantastic, ja.
So ek probeer om Afrikaans te praat, but ek kan verstaan. Miskien ons gaan die
mix the language a bit.
Yes, we'll mix.
But ons gaan so 'n bietjie van 'n fruit salad maak.
Yeah.
But your home language would be what?
Jy kan hoor
from Limpopo would be
I speak Setswana.
Setswana.
Yes, but I speak most of other
languages as well.
Yes, yeah.
Like you find with clever people.
Yeah.
Maar jy kan hoor Tshepo kan Afrikaans praat want hy gebruik die dubbel negatief.
You haven't introduced our guest.
I'm going to.
Oh,
Tshepo is, let me start off with the most important thing. He is a very, very committed South African.
Yeah.
He is also a brilliant economist.
Yes.
And also an energy expert. One of the best energy experts in South Africa. And a couple of years ago, Tshepo was the chairperson of Petro SA. But when we talk about that, he says that was the misfortune that befell me.
Yes.
Because he got into the crosshairs of Cyril Ramaphosa and his crooks.
Okay.
Today, Tshepo is an economist, investment economist, and him and I speak all the time because he's also the co-host of a X Space. In the past, it was called Twitter Spaces, that we host twice a week, called In My Crosshairs. And it's been going now for 1 year and 3/4. And we've had you, Louis, a couple of times onto the space.
Absolutely.
We had some very good discussions. And recently, we also discussed the topic that we are going to discuss today, and that is the manipulation of the rand, and Tshepo made an outstanding contribution. So toe jy vir my sê jy wil hê ons moet vandag kom gesels oor wat aangaan met die manipulasie van die rand se waarde, toe het ek dadelik gesê Tshepo moet by ons aansluit.
Wonderlik.
En vanoggend het hy 'n briljante onderhoud gedoen met die SAIK, 'n onderhoud wat hy gedoen het saam met 'n ander ekonoom wat ook 'n goeie vriend van ons is en wat ook gereeld op die X Spaces is, Regin Corsi.
I actually saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it this morning.
Thank you.
So
congratulations.
Tshepo dink ek, as ek iets uitgelaat het, moet homself verder voorstel aan ons gehoor. Maar ek ken Tshepo as 'n man van integriteit. Ek het vir jare met hom saamgewerk en gepraat, ook op ander radiostasies en televisiestasies. Ons was gereeld saam op die ou ANN7. En daar was dit waar ons aan die begin gesê het, maar kyk, hier is randmanipulasie van die waarde van die rand aan die gang. En ek onthou, dit was ook saam met Sifiso Mhlangu. Sifiso het jy ook al ontmoet, Louis. Sifiso was toe die nuusredakteur van ANN7. Vandag is hy die hoofredakteur van The Star, 'n baie briljante jong man. En saam met hom en Tshepo en ander ekonome het ons gesê, maar die rand word gemanipuleer. En ek onthou wat gebeur het. Ons is verskree, ons is gevloek, ons is uitgemaak as gekke. Die toenmalige gouverneur van die Reservebank, Tito Mboweni, het gesê, ons is 'n klomp ekonomiese ignoramuses, dat is die groot woord wat meneer
ek is al
gebruik
goed genoem as daai.
Maar nou ja, die ignoramus, soos dit uitdraai, was toe uiteindelik hy was uiteindelik die gouverneur van die Reservebank, Tito Mboweni, want vandag weet ons dat die kompetisieraad aangekondig het dat daar groot manipulasie van die waarde van die rand plaasgevind het, triljoene rande se waarde is gesteel. Daar is ten minste 28 groot maatskappye en banke wat by hierdie randwaarde manipulasie by betrokke was. En Standard Charter het erken dat hulle het gedoen het. Hulle het nou ook 'n boete betaal. Hulle het so 'n rapsie op die gewrig gekry. Jy weet, hulle het 'n paar triljoen rand gemaak, maar hulle het 42,7 miljoen randjies betaal net om soort van, ek is askies te sê. Jammer, né? Maar nou ja, wat ons mee te doen het in Suid-Afrika is, die ekonomie het uitmekaar geval. Ons het groot randmanipulasie gesien van die waarde. En vandag dink ek dit is belangrik dat ons gesels, en hieroor gaan ek vir Tshepo vra om in te kom, oor wat dit al duidelik was dat die rand se waarde gemanipuleer word baie jare gelede. In 2001 het Kevin Wakeford gesê die rand se waarde word gemanipuleer, en hy het na toenmalige president Mbeki gegaan. En hy het vir hom gesê, maar die rand se waarde word gemanipuleer. En Mbeki,
hy het dadelik werk gemaak daarvan. Dit moet ons dan krediet gee.
Ek gaan nou na Tshepo toe kom, maar jy moet die storie ken. Mbeki het geweet dat dit aan die gang is. Toe Kevin na hom toe kom, het Mbeki geweet. Maar hy maak toe asof hy van niks weet nie. Weet, dit kom soos 'n grootste verrassing na hom toe. So Cyril Ramaphosa nou aanhoudend sê, I'm so shocked. So dit was nou Mbeki. Toe sê Mbeki, nee, hy gaan nou 'n spesiale ondersoek in kommissie aanstel om hierdie aantuigings wat Kevin maak te ondersoek. And what happened was, Kevin was not a fool. He realized, Mbeki weet wat aangaan. Maar hy wil nie vir my sê nie, en hy gaan probeer om hierdie ding te manipuleer. Nou, ek het hierdie verhaal op my X-Space vertel, maar ek moet dit nou op vanmiddag weer vertel. Na ek vir Kevin ontmoet het, want hy bel my toe, hy sê, kyk, ek wil met jou praat, ek is nie terug van Nederland af as ambassadeur, waar ek in Nederland was as ambassadeur van Suid-Afrika, ek ontmoet vir Kevin. Kevin sê vir my, kyk, dis wat aan die gang is, hy gee vir my dokumente, al die ding. So 'n paar dae na ek met Kevin gepraat het, kry ek 'n oproep van Joe Marcus. Nou, Joe Marcus was die adjunk-gouverneur van die Reservebank onder Tito Mboweni. Onthou, later het sy toe self ook gouverneur geword van die Reserve.
Natuurlijk,
En sy sê vir my, jy moet my kom sien. Ek het haar geken in die jare toe ons saam in die ANC se departement van inligting en publisiteit gewerk het. So ek gaan toe daar na daai groot grys-swart blok van 'n gebou van die Reservebank in Pretoria, reg op tot daar bo, uit 'n pragtige kantoor, daar's 'n tafel wat gedek is, ons moet 'n privaat middagete hê. Maar het was nie lank dat ons begin eet het nie, toe kom
Wat het jy geëet, Paul?
Ek het vis geëet.
Maar jy onthou
salmon.
dit.
Ek onthou dit nog baie goed. Maar in alle geval, toe kom die masker af. Toe kom die masker af.
Ja.
En sy sê vir my, ek onthou sy wys my so, sy sê, ek weet jy het met Kevin ontmoet. En moenie na sy stories luister. Ek waarsku jou nou.
Sjoe.
As jy jouself met hierdie ding besig hou, gaan jou vingers verbrand, soos wat Kevin sy vingers gaan verbrand. Nou, ons almal weet wat toe gebeur het.
Ja,
en dit is waar ek vir Tshepo wil inbring, om te begin, want wat toe gebeur het was, daai kommissie was duidelik opgesit, it was a farce, it was meant to cover up, and I'm sure Mbeki was part of it, certainly Tito Mboweni was part of it, certainly Joe Marcus was part of it. And the commission found that Kevin's very, very substantial information was not correct. They just threw it into the wind.
I found it interesting at the time.
And then what happened is Kevin's career was destroyed.
Yeah.
He lost his job as chief executive of the business chamber where he was. And the one person who had the courage in that commission, who was Yasmin Suka, who brought out a minority report, her career was destroyed.
Yeah.
So the powers that be came out guns blazing to cover this whole thing up and to destroy the people who were prepared to speak out. Tshepo, I'm handing over to you. You know the story, you know Kevin Wakeford. I know Louis met Kevin also. Louis for Kevin.
Yes, I just wanted to cut in quickly. In fact, I got to know him through Barry Sargent at that time.
A great journalist, by the way.
The great journalist. I met him at MoneyWeb, him investigating me at the time. So that was a wonderful. But I wanted to cut in here just briefly. If I recall correctly, there was even a Labour advocate that was brought in. I think it was Anton Meiberg, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yes.
And then another advocate, but they
Christine
were not.
Kunta.
Yeah, but they were not cut out for the job. And it was a strange put together of a commission that was supposed to have knowledge. But I mean, when you look at that kind of thing, you would expect specialists on the team, which wasn't quite so.
Well, yes, if you establish a commission of inquiry under the Commissions Act of 1947,
yes,
that is established by the president.
Correct.
You have to appoint a judge.
Yeah.
But it does not stipulate, the law does not stipulate that judge's area of speciality. Must it be a speciality or he or she speciality in constitutional law?
Yes.
International law, human rights law, labor law, commercial law. All that's required is for that to be a judge. Hence, it's a judicial commission of inquiry.
Correct.
And that's how Judge Meiberg got to chair that. But you're correct. He was not cut for the job.
Yeah.
He understood labor. He's no different from the current Chief Justice.
Yeah.
We may now speak. I mean, the current Chief Justice.
We're on very dangerous ground now.
Unfortunately, he was an attorney.
Yeah.
So he's a lawyer, yes, but he was an attorney. He never became senior counsel, an advocate.
Yes.
And he never really, in his career, he never had a distinguishable career in terms of getting instructions from clients.
Yes.
So some of the matters that you deal with, if Zondo was still practicing as an attorney, he would not have been able to help you. He would have been at sea.
Yeah.
Now here, we take somebody who's at sea like that, we made him to be the deputy. So he spent 17 years at the labor court as a judge and a judge president of that court.
Yes.
Then he ascended or was parachuted into the constitutional court and made the deputy chief justice.
Yeah.
A tragedy.
Absolutely.
So everything else that is happening today is because of that.
Yeah.
But with Judge Meiberg as well, I don't know him personally, but his career says that he was ill-suited. He was not the man to have chaired the Rand Commission. Therefore, it is not surprising the type of a report he came up with.
Yeah.
the then Chief Executive Officer of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA, a gentleman called Mandla Ganchu, was also roped in to be one of the commissioners. And they wrapped up, they spent 15 million rand in that commission, but prematurely brought it to a close. And
51, 50.
15.
15.
15 million rand.
15 million. Okay.
And
if you compare it to today, it's not a lot of money if you look at Zondo.
No, not at all. But also they didn't go to the depth
yes,
of the issues.
Course.
So what happened is that companies that were involved in the manipulation of the currency, well, a bank that was the architect of all the manipulation on behalf of MTN, the phone company,
yes,
which Ramaphosa has been, a chairman, has been
board,
on the board and a shareholder,
major shareholder,
and continues to this day. It is not surprising that even during the Rugby World Cup in France, he was given a T-shirt and he donned on the T-shirt with MTN. Because it's his company. He did what is called ambush marketing on the world stage. And
that was not the official T-shirt.
That was not the official T-shirt. So
but
he
deliberately wore that
and I think it was the first time that the president was really there with the players. We remember Madiba walking and so on and so on, but he wasn't on the stage and staying there and meeting everybody.
But anyway, so Ramaphosa's links go back to even that time when MTN was accused and guilty of the manipulation of the rand, facilitated by Deutsche Bank. The country managing director for Deutsche Bank was one Martin Kingston. Martin Kingston, who was married to the erstwhile president, excellent man, the daughter of the president of the ANC, Oliver Reginald Tambo. And then when OR died, well, he then switched and, married somebody else. He then came here from the UK and was made head of Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank was the architect. But the reason I'm mentioning his name specifically is because he was at the center of the manipulation and the assault on the rand. That is the man who, at the end of the day, was the chief architect of that heinous economic crime.
That's now 2001 we're talking.
2001 we are talking about.
All right.
And then the other company was a company called Sasol. So when the commission finished its job, out of 3 commissioners, 2 didn't even wrap them over the knuckle. Just said, well, there's really very little here. Christine Kunta, as a corporate lawyer, came with the minority report where she made certain recommendations. They were obviously in the minority of no consequence. But Judge Maiberg was rewarded by being given briefs by none other than the same companies that were guilty of the assault on the rand. Mandla Ganchu was then appointed chairman of Sasol, which itself was
a big
so you're investigating a company and then you become the big boss of the same company.
Yes, I think the ANC people, sorry Carl, I have to mention the ANC people.
You have to,
they like this language of throwing the javelin. It says, I'm sitting here and then I throw the javelin, I pick it up on the other side.
Exactly,
and that's effectively what they did. But the remember the rand had moved from just under 7 rand to 13 rand 82 cents.
That happened in a short space of time.
Yes.
Very short space of time.
Then it went back, but the long-term view has always been that the rand must be 20-1 in terms of the US dollar. So the current rand manipulation, which is not going on for the last week or month or year,
it's been going on for years.
For the last 15 years at least, since the rand commission of Judge Maiberg. They then returned and continued with the manipulation with the chief aim of making it so weak, but also so volatile a volatile currency, nobody can make a decision.
No, exactly.
You are an international
No, you can't.
businessman.
You can't plan.
So you sit there.
Yeah.
At any point in time, when you have to make a decision, you're wondering, but at what exchange rate?
Exactly.
So that has brought in paralysis. It is therefore not surprising that the economy is not able to grow, because you cannot make a long-term decision
Yes.
on a volatile currency.
Yeah.
And of course, the Rand Commission ended. Kevin Wakeford.
That ended within a couple of months. About 3 or 4 months.
Within 4 months, they were done.
All right.
As Tshepo says, it was prematurely brought to an end.
Yeah.
Because they really were just there to cover up.
Why do they put up a show? I mean, we've seen it with so many commissions in this country. It is like a big show. Even the Zondo Commission, with respect, can be regarded in such a fashion.
Political aim.
And it's though afterwards you don't see the consequences, and people feel, we've been watching this on television, we've been watching the show. It's like episodes. I mean, South Africa, to an extent, is now a movie.
Yes,
it just depends on which episode we're on.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is the effect it has on people.
Oh, yes.
And I remember now, way back, if we talk about that stage, I got involved in the diamond industry around about 2003, 2004. The Rand was about 6-1 at the time. I'm trying to remember the exact. And what effect that had on diamonds, I mean, even till today. The interesting thing is, and you've mentioned it, today could be 1837. Tomorrow could be 1910.
Yes.
Not in terms of just, it sounds like we're talking history here.
Yes.
Now that is impossible. Even today, I'm saying there is a massive amount of manipulation. I've listened to Standard Bank this morning saying that they've got nothing to do with it. So listening to their CEO, I'm not pointing fingers, but it's just very strange that they would come out so briefly and say, like, no, we haven't been involved at all since 2001. We would have admitted it like Ramos, and I said, okay, sorry, we didn't do that. What do you make of the major banks? We now know Citibank way back, and we know now about Standard Chartered. And 28 banks, they don't really mention the names, do they? They here and there 4 or 5 banks mentioned.
Standard Bank is in that list.
Standard Bank denies it profusely.
Yes, but they're in that list.
Are they seriously?
Yes.
So would it take now a witness to come to the front and say, listen, I've received this WhatsApp, I've received this email that said, we're going to keep the Rand at 18 Rand? Or how does it physically work?
Okay, so there are a chain of events that happen. But at 4 o'clock each day, today, the treasurers. Now, what interesting thing about the bank, by the way, is that you will know who the chief executive officer is, you'll know who the chief financial officer is, but you never get to know who's the treasurer of the bank. Because that is the person that you have to protect. Must never be known. That person cannot be like Zondo, loving publicity. And be out there because the very existence of the bank relies on the treasurer.
Can imagine.
And at the end of the day, at 4 o'clock, they now need to have a look as to, do I have a shortfall? Do I need to borrow interbank market? And who?
How does it physically work? We're talking to some layman people here. So how does it physically work? They get together now at 4 o'clock and they say, listen, we've got a Rand at 1850. Okay. They ideally would like to have it at 18 or at 19, depending on whether they buy or sell.
Well, okay. So there are two things I'm actually talking about. So the bank will determine, okay, how much money do I need overnight? What commitments do I have tomorrow that I must meet? Do I have excess cash? And if I have excess cash, do I, lend it to Carl to pay me back tomorrow? And what
it
is
would
the interest?
normally be a corporate or a bank that
that's just among the banks.
Just interbank.
That's just interbank.
Okay. Yes.
So then that's the one element. The other, of course, of the exchange rate. When we took a decision to abolish the dual currency, we used to have the commercial rand and the financial rand.
Remember that.
And then we made the rand to be free flowing. Free float. So meaning that it's up to the market to determine. that is the day
Demand and
we
supply.
open the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
That's the day we, we hell broke loose,
Yes.
because it gave these manipulators a great opportunity without the surveillance or oversight of the Reserve Bank
Yeah.
to then manipulate, because then we've created the currency trading. Remember, it's a derivative instrument.
Yeah.
It's not really. So we trade the dollar, but that is the derivatives market. That is not in the real economy.
Correct.
That is not where I'm buying
Yeah.
half a liter of water and I'm paying X.
Right.
So whereby the half a liter of water could be a US dollar.
Of course.
But that is just virtual, where they do derivatives.
Yeah.
Meaning it derives the value out of the underlying value. So I create an artificial demand. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I think earlier off air, we were talking about the business that I listed in 2005 on the JSE.
Correct, yes.
That the bank that we worked with, an international bank, they were trading in the oil space, crude oil.
Yeah.
But they had 2 million barrels a day of physical oil that they traded.
Yeah.
But they had 10 million barrels that was paper, was a derivative. Virtual oil.
AI.
So it happens the same way with currencies. It's not that actually there's a demand on the actual currency.
Yes.
And that is then the day where the manipulation happens in that derivative market, whereby you take an arbitrage opportunity, simply just saying, I bet on it.
Yes.
So it is in that betting whereby then they have a wink and, whisper to each other that, look, let's do like this, and this is what I need, because we have financialized our economy.
Yeah.
And thus are because of the erroneous macroeconomic policies of both the Reserve Bank as well as the National Treasury, to the extent that actually we've given franchise. 92% of money supply in South Africa is not in the control of the South African Reserve Bank, but it is all of these people they've licensed. Now, all of these banks, for them to be able to do this arbitrage, this derivative trading, this gambling, they are able to do so on franchise, on license from the South African Reserve Bank. But when they do that, they undermine the financial system, they undermine the currency, because then the net result is the currency moves up or down, not because there is actual demand for it, whereby we are settling, we are making payment or we are receiving payment for what we export, or that we are paying for what we import. It moves on this derivatives market whereby, for example, if in any one day in terms of settlements, meaning what we pay for, would be 1 billion. You'll find that 20 billion, so 20 to 1. 20 is where there's actually no actual settlement, but the volume gives you that volatility, whereby now the currency would weaken or strengthen. But it then affects the real economy, because when now you are having to pay physically for the oil that you bring in, for most of the things that we now import in this country, you are now paying on predicated, based on the artificial exchange. It is artificial on the basis that it is not actual goods and services, whereby there was then a demand for either the US dollar or a demand for the rand, in the event whereby either money flows into South Africa because we exported goods, or money flows into South Africa of a capital nature, meaning that there is an investment into the productive sectors of the economy. For example, you want to open a new mine, then you raise money overseas. That money will be in foreign currency, which has to be converted to a rand. So there will be then a demand for what? For the rand. But at a later point, you're going to have a demand for the foreign currency and a dollar, when you're now having to pay a profit, a dividend to that investor. Or you have to repay a loan, so you can receive a loan. But that is actual physical. Now,
Yeah.
the real economy does not function as efficient and as desired because the volatility makes that you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I might bring into the country $1 million to go into a investment and I
Or
convert.
into a sofa.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, or into a sofa.
Yeah.
Now, the story of a sofa,
Sorry.
The
I
story
had
of
to-
a sofa.
I had to
Yeah,
get
you
there.
stoked, Lou.
But can we get to bread?
Yes,
Okay, so we are a net importer, correct?
of wheat,
In
yes.
this country of wheat, I
And
think
everything,
just about everything.
Yes.
Okay. It is a very sad and solemn occasion, but that's the reality of our
We import
of our life now.
from coffee to coffins.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous what we import, and if you think what skills we have here, to even think about it is too much for me. But it's all got to do with what we're talking about today. So, even with bread, we saw that there was price fixing. So it's possible for people that's in power. Now, I've always struggled with this concept. Who is in power? Who's in power? Because the idea I'm getting when we talk about these things, okay, normally we would talk about a reserve bank. There's 160 odd branches throughout the world, and we always think, okay, Rothschild and those kind of things, because J.P. Morgan, Rothschild, those were the people right throughout centuries were manipulating the markets. I mean, up to 2008, I think, until they were wrapped over the knuckles. And I think even that penalty that they've paid was nothing, and we'll get to that. But now, thinking about the manipulation. So the Reserve Bank is lending money to other branches of that we know, ABSA and FNB and so on and so on. Now, thinking about that relationship itself cannot be very healthy, because you've got Big Brother controlling what the bank does. Or doesn't it work that way? Am I too rudimentary in my thinking about economies? Because I'm getting to the point of, in order to manipulate, you obviously have to have consent from somewhere.
Yes.
Because a commercial bank, I mean, you started as a cashier, and then you become a branch manager, and then you go up, and then eventually you get maybe to the CEO or to the treasurer. But you take your instructions from somewhere. Now, nobody in their right mind will send, FNB would send to ABSA, listen, I think we need to peg it at $20 to, tomorrow. Nobody would do that without an instruction. Where does that instruction come from? Is it politicized? Is it a purely economical issue?
No, okay. The political ruling class we have, what is the correct terminology, Comrade Carl, is called a comprador.
Yeah.
Comprador capitalists.
The comprador bourgeoisie, meaning that they get elected by the rest of us.
Yes.
We put them in position, but they actually execute a mandate of a privateer.
Somebody else.
Whose intention is nothing to greedily profiteer, notwithstanding the hardship that will be visited upon the people, ordinary people, whereby the price of everything goes up.
Yes.
So you actually have to buy yourself a politician, and there's nothing new about it.
No, it's standard.
Yeah, it's just that maybe.
Have you been bought?
100 years ago, they might have.
I've never been for sale.
Yeah, but that's why. That's why they fired you.
You have to be.
Yeah.
That's why. Let's say 100 years ago, you could buy 3 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
Today they are very expensive, but they are still for sale all the same.
Yeah.
So they will then use their position of power, which is they are put into on trust. So hence you have the principle of fiduciary.
Yeah.
Then they use that position to advance their parochial interest, the limited, narrow interest of profiteering by those that have put them in place. And have given them the bowl of the proverbial lentil soup, where they can sell the birthright of the people of this nation for a proverbial bowl of lentil soup.
And it's happened.
It's happening right now.
We know that.
What you face, that's why I wanted to come in here, is you have the politicians, which is the public face. and they're given a degree of legitimacy because supposedly they've been elected democratically, so to speak.
Yeah.
So these politicians can now legitimize what is happening behind the scenes from these big business interests who want to optimize the profits, and they take the instructions from them. Now, Tshepo referred to a gentleman that had been part of Deutsche Bank, Martin Kingston,
Yeah.
who was central in playing this role, was central also in the interface between these big business interests and the politicians. He referred to the marital relations that Martin Kingston had and still has. He's now married to another lady who's part of the political elite in the African National Congress, who is the daughter of the former Minister of Health in South Africa, Mantu Shabalala Msimang, and Martin Kingston has played that role. Now, in 2001, when the story started coming out, the water became a little bit hot for Martin. He withdrew, went to London, but he came back in a new guise. And this time, he came back as the CEO of Rothschild South Africa. Moved from Deutsche Bank to Rothschild. And up to this day, he continues to play that critical role of this interface between the so-called legitimate politicians, very close relationship with Tito Mboweni, very close relationship with Trevor Manuel and with Cyril Ramaphosa. They are house friends. But they are making sure that the politicians now legitimize and provide the kind of public face of these decisions that get taken behind the scenes. And if you look at the role that Martin Kingston plays in South Africa, he's centrally involved in the destruction of the state-owned enterprises of South Africa.
Oh, yes, yes.
Martin, in 2017, actually 2018, just after Cyril Ramaphosa was elected as president of the ANC, wrote a letter to the then CEO of Eskom, 4-page letter, delineating exactly how he thinks that the various divisions of Eskom must now be broken up, must be sold off, must be put in separate businesses. It is there, a blueprint. If you look at what Pravin Gordhan has been doing the last couple of years, he's been following that letter that Martin wrote to the CEO of Eskom in 2018 to the T. So here again, you have behind the scenes the guys who are really going to benefit, the ones who are benefiting also from this whole concept of green and renewable energy and how we must move away from coal as the base. But at the same time, they are involved in the trade of our high-grade coal to Western Europe, to Germany, to France, etc., etc., and they sustain those economies while the South African economy is being made as vulnerable as possible. Because you must understand, Louis, that part of this whole approach is we must keep this economy always on the brink. It must never be able to rely on the strength of our natural resources
and our people
to be able to become an economy that can sustain itself. It must always be an economy dependent on the big Western European imperialist economies. And so Martin Kingston, there are a number of other people, but we're just using Martin Kingston as one of the prime examples, plays exactly that role that you ask us now. But who is really the people who are interfacing it? People like him on behalf of Rothschild, formerly on behalf of Deutsche Bank. Anyhow, there's an umbilical cord between all these big financial institutions. So that is the way it plays. And therefore, the politicians have to be bought, But even further, I want to go, the politicians have to be carefully trained and manipulated and put in place so that that role can be played. That is why there'd been a long-term project on Cyril Ramaphosa from the early days when he started the National Union of Mine Workers, and Harry Oppenheimer and the Menels identified him as a competent but pliant young man who can be used. Remember, Irene Menel said, we put Cyril Ramaphosa into the Urban Foundation because that appointment was our insurance policy for the future. Now, that insurance policy has paid out very well. It is playing out in today's economy all the way. And it is resulting also in the fact, and mark my words, Ramaphosa will cover up the revelations around the currency manipulation of the rand full out. And mark my words that the announcement that Cabinet made a week and a half ago, that there's now this revelation because of the research that is being done by the commission, by the Commission of Inquiry into all of this. Mark my words, they are doing it because they want to cover it up. It's not to reveal it, it's to manage it, to cover it up, to cover the work up that is being done by the Competition Commission.
I want to go back a bit in history. If we go and look at the Rothschilds, and we look at Nathan, following up on his dad, and then the nephew, and the feud that was there for a while. But I mean, we were talking Vienna, we were talking Paris, London. I might leave out one or two, but they've been basically covering Europe until like the beginning of the 19th century. Then suddenly they moved to America, later on to America. And if you go and look at that history, I mean, there was basically J.P. Morgan and the Rothschilds. Those were the opposition. We all know that history. But it is interesting for me that it is America now that has basically burst this bubble, has brought it to the forefront. I don't think if it didn't happen there, that South Africa would have responded.
Yeah, South Africa would not respond. But also, are the measures adequate? No. But why? Okay. Apart from the profit that you make, what they call arbitrage. In this manipulation. When you do stocks, they say you go long and short. Effectively, I'm shorting your stock. Meaning I'm betting on it going down. But I make money once your stock is falling. Your share price.
Because you're making money all the time.
I go long. It just means that I'm expressing confidence in your share price, and therefore, it stays high. But I'm owning the actual share. Why would it be necessary for these banks to collude to manipulate the currency? Because they are all aware the value of the minerals of South Africa is over $2.5 trillion US.
Exactly.
Before you extract and beneficiate. Just in the ground.
Just like that.
In the ground, they are
digging holes,
because the new economy, when you talk today that we have a thing called net zero, we must reduce carbon, all the minerals you need, whether you're talking rare earths to make sophisticated artificial intelligence equipment, whether you're talking about very dangerous weapons for war, for your country, all those minerals, rare earths, we have them here. Others, for example, you can't build a shipping industry unless you've got manganese. We have got 80% of the world's manganese is in South Africa. Over 80% of the world's chrome reserves are in this country. Manganese now, batteries, you can't make an EV, electric vehicle battery without having manganese. But there's a whole host of other materials. So because of that value, and once you start extracting them, however, the long-term goal is to make sure that the rand is so weak that when you are now purchasing them, you purchase them on 1 cent to the dollar and not, at the lowest,
Exactly.
at the lowest.
As cheap as possible.
The moment you have now bought everything, so it's not surprising that we are now hearing the agitation that Eskom must be sold to foreigners.
Yes.
Transnet must be sold to foreigners. And Transnet in terms of entirety. Ports. South Africa has got 3,800 kilometers of
railway.
Now the Indian Ocean, for 2 years, in fact for 3 years, I was first deputy chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Business Forum.
Yes.
This is 23 countries in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
South Africa has got a very large territorial maritime waters in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
That is rich not only with hydrocarbons, oil and gas, but also for world trade, facilitation of world trade.
Yes.
It is therefore not surprising that South Africa has got the highest number of foreign missions, second to America, to the United States, Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Because of its geopolitical importance.
Correct.
So, in order to be able now to own everything, and it's got nothing to do with whether one is black or white.
Yeah.
Is that the people of this country are going to be dispossessed in future generations. Because when the currency is that weak, and then you have made all of these critical sectors of the economy so weak, so dysfunctional, that then you buy them for little.
Exactly.
Once you have acquired them, the rent will then re-rate and the value will appreciate to such an extent. And why will the rent appreciate? Because when you are now having to repatriate your profits, you cannot, it is of no consequence when you are repatriating your profits at the devalued currency, which is volatile.
Yes.
You need a stable currency, and that is pegged, even albeit unofficially, but that is pegged to a stronger currency. And what is that stronger currency? Is the dollar. Not that the dollar is of any value, but they'll want to peg it to the US dollar, so that when they now are repatriating their profits, they have got certainty.
Exactly.
Because then they will have acquired this vast wealth of this nation. So if you look at it, Eskom, for example, has got 390,000 kilometers of distribution line, electric wire that is coming to the users.
Yes.
The grid, in terms of transmission, these big pylons, is almost 34,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
So when you buy Eskom for little money, after the taxpayer has paid off
everything, all the
debt
and even
that
the
it
debt,
has, you then sell it for R1 instead of for 3 trillion rand.
Like Woolworths and OK.
Yes, you sell it for exactly.
Yeah.
So you sell it for R1 instead of 3 trillion rand. That is its true value.
Yeah.
That transmission.
Yes.
Because that transmission comes not only with the right of way to supply electricity, but the land that sits on it.
Sits on the
you
pylon.
own that land.
Yeah.
And you get it for free.
Yeah.
And once you now own that land, there are so many things that you can be able to then go and do. The same thing with the railways. The same thing with the ports. There's the pipeline infrastructure.
Yeah.
So the manipulation of the rand is part of a more sinister, more evil scheme to enslave every one of us, regardless of our race or color or gender in this country, by foreign interests who have got few people, very few. That minority, it is not surprising, therefore, that minority, headed by none other than our president, is he our president?
No,
let's say he's our
we disagree on that.
Okay, let's say he's the president.
Remember what you call him always, the
occupier in chief.
The West Wing
the
of the
occupier
Union.
in chief
It
of the
sounds
West
like
Wing.
Israel and
That
Gaza now.
he was founded, he was found to have been complicit in the Paradise Papers as well as in the Panama Papers in terms of tax evasion.
Yeah.
And as I say, the companies he's involved with, they currently on the banking side are guilty of currency manipulation. The other companies were involved even during the Rand Commission, externalizing. South Africa loses over 200 billion rand every year in illicit trade flows, where money gets siphoned out of this country and does not go into the productive sectors of the economy. Hence, the economy is not growing. So it's not that we are personal or out of hatred of these people.
It's an
It's
objective
because
view.
what they do, if we wanted to understand what is the correct definition of the word traitor, these are the true traitors. These are traitors of the people of this country. Because right now, when you look at the price of bread, you look at the price of petrol, you look at the price of mealie meal. And the other thing that they are not telling us is the dispossession. Now, most of your listeners, they speak Afrikaans. So the great number of them would be farmers. If we were to engage with the farmers and hear how many of them have been put under so much pressure to lose their farms, so that land is also now taken custody by the very same banks to then ensure that global agenda is achieved. Because when you now don't have land, because it was forfeited, foreclosed by the bank, then there will be no food production. So we are going to see mass starvation. But the manipulation of the rand today is costing us so much hardship that even when they have now taken over all this treasure, the commonwealth of this country, in minerals, in infrastructure, in all of these things, when they do re-rate, we will not be able to recover quick enough. So this is very serious because ordinary people, and at the end of the day, if we lose heart for ordinary people, if we are put in a position of power, and yet the citizenry can be having an outcry that the people of this country are outcrying. I took my daughter today on a drive because I needed to change a tire. So I moved from Rue de Port. I went into Mayfair. So we went past Langlacht and all of that. The dilapidation of the area is just run down. And the people, you go past Bosmont, you see people there who are so dejected. People who are able-bodied, but they are not at work. And on their face, you can see hunger. Now, if you have got leaders, so-called, who don't have conscience, who can dismiss a very serious crime of currency manipulation because it undermines the economy, therefore your ability and capacity to create jobs, to eradicate and reduce poverty, when you can have leaders who are just, they don't care.
Do you think the level of education of the ordinary citizen is a stumbling block in this process? Let me take you through this argument. They say that the rand should be measured by the, what's the American hamburger now with the M?
Oh, yes, the McDonald's. Yes.
So according to the McDonald's theory, the rand should be 8-1 at the moment, as we speak here. Now, that's a very rudimentary way of thinking about it. But the ordinary citizen, and let me just say, my education of our people has been somewhat like this. I've been saying the mineral wealth of this country should be in the hands of the ordinary people. I'm not saying that because I think they are ready for it. I'm saying that we would be better off taking a bet on that rather than having one or two people. I mean, how dangerous is this? We've got a president, Ramaphosa, here, and his brother-in-law is now on the World Economic Forum. And just take that. Let's just stop there. And maybe you might differ from me, but what kind of influence comes from there? And if we are really in the hands of a person or people in Parliament that is not the vote of the people, we've seen it now. I want to go to the conference last year. that feeling of dejection, of total despondency of the people on the ground. I was sitting with Carl. I came from Bloemfontein. I didn't want to get near to the conference. I must be honest with you. Not because I didn't have any hope or so, but what we saw over a period of 2 days and the influence of money.
Oh, yes.
The influence, you could feel it. The 1 minute there was jubilation for Zweli Mkhize and a few others you remember from the Eastern Cape and so on. There was a candidate, I can't remember the names. Don't want to talk politics, just the principle. Okay. And suddenly the next day, there was a total swing in how people voted and how they felt. Now, the same is happening now. People gradually were introduced to a system of domination. This is not only, if we can see spiritually today, we would see all the red jackets of the settlers in South Africa today at work. But because it's not an army, and this brings me to the next point, throughout history, those manipulators wanted war.
Yes.
They wanted war to make money. The same that's happening in Ukraine, the same that's happening in the Gaza Strip at the moment. And because we've been spiritually brainwashed, I look at Afrikaans people and they say, I'm with Israel. And I'm looking at the TV and I see a small child, 39 babies lying on a table without a generator, and the rest of the world cannot do anything. They can't use an aeroplane. They can't use anything to go to Gaza and just say, listen, this is not right. We're going on about global warming. We're going on about, clean air and all these things. But we cannot even look in the year 2023 at a baby and save it from a bomb. You understand what I'm trying to say? The world wants war. And manipulating the rand like it's happening is leading to war. And we are being kept busy.
It is war, but
Yes.
it doesn't involve guns yet.
It might.
It is
Not
war.
yet.
Because
Not
once
yet.
poverty gets to, remember the French Revolution. We must learn from the French Revolution. There comes a time that the peoples will storm the castle. We've seen it in America. We've seen it in Ukraine. We've seen it now in Gaza. There comes a time, even if they go with a knife against a whole army, there's something in the human that wants to say, this is wrong.
Yes.
My feeling of righteousness, of what is right and wrong, is now going to take over. And I don't care what is going to happen. I must be honest with you, I'm more or less at that level. Not at an unstable level of saying, let's destroy it all. But we must be more vigilant in saying this is the real enemy. If people, I just went to Mauritius for 10 days. Tshepo, I must be honest with you, I went there with a perception. I went there in 1998. And I've looked at the people at the time talking, at the time they were still talking about the politics and about Holland and the French and the whatever taking over, and now they're independent. When I went this time, the taxi drivers, without exception, said to me, sir, we cannot survive. We cannot survive. And initially I thought that was a joke because, from St. Louis, Port Louis, up to the north, we went to in Gaub area there in the northeast. And I went to buy an ice cream, and it was 240 rand for this small ice cream. And I thought, okay, now,
right.
whether you've got money or not is not the issue. And the next call was at the reception to pay for the food for 5 days, which is not breakfast, but lunch, and sometimes dinner was 43,000 rand for 4.5 or 5 days. And I was saying to Daisy Tshepo, these people cannot afford their own hotels. So what's going to happen here? All these people, they're giving away their land. South Africans said, look, there's certain areas where they talk about South African Monaco. You walk into Woolworths, it's like you're in South Africa. And it's all capital that we've lost out of this country.
Yes.
And now, although the rupee is still, I think it's 43 cents to the rand, something like that, the locals cannot afford to eat in a restaurant. They're earning 7,000 rand a month as a taxi driver working 16, 17 hours a day. This is where it's heading. Enslaving people.
But Louis, we're there already. In South Africa, you know, when you go into Soweto or you're going to Guguletu,
Yeah.
in the middle of the week.
My hometown, Tembisa here.
Yeah, Tembisa. In the middle of the week, it's like on a Saturday and a Sunday. Everyone is walking around on the streets because they are unemployed.
Unemployment, 60% of the
and
youth.
the few people that do have some little salary that they earn, it's not nearly enough to live. So in South Africa, we have real hunger. Here in this town of Johannesburg, people are going hungry every day. I talk to teachers in schools, especially in the former townships, and they will tell you we have a serious problem of children coming to school hungry. That is why the little bit of a school feeding scheme that is there, and that also gets exploited and corrupted and all of that, is critical just to keep those children literally alive. But let me come back to the point that you described, because it's a very important one. Of last year, the 55th National Conference of the ANC, and you were there with me at a house where we were monitoring what was happening at the conference.
Yeah.
And you quite correctly say there was at one point some hope, some elation. We are going to change things.
Yeah.
There will be a new leadership emerging, and that almost overnight it changed because of the way in which money was used to buy people, to buy the vote.
Yeah.
Now, what does that do? It disempowers people. If you go to social media today,
Sorry, and also to threaten them. Those that would not be bought then get
they
threatened.
get threatened.
Physically.
You're right.
To say, well, your life.
It's
That's
a
why we've got the
combination
political
of
murders just
threats
increasing
and
all the time.
of buying people over.
Yeah.
And of course, the examples that they set of what happens to people who don't take the money and who are prepared to stand up. I'm sitting here as one of those examples. A week before that conference took place, I was suddenly expelled from the ANC.
I remember that.
You remember what happened?
I was shocked.
No, but remember what happened the weekend, Louis?
Yeah.
When the disciplinary hearing of the ANC was forced through. This is now 4 days before the conference. And on the virtual meeting, the chair of the disciplinary committee, Ralph Kgadima, is talking to the prosecutor, and they think they've turned the volume off. And he says to the prosecutor, look, Amanda, we must move now. He must be expelled on Monday because, remember, the president wants him out. He cannot come to the conference. So it wasn't just to remove me.
And you won't even get this publicized.
No.
You won't hear about
You
it.
try, you tell the media about it, they don't even report about it. But yes, they wanted to remove me.
Radio here.
They wanted
Yeah.
to remove me. But not just because they wanted my voice to be silenced. They wanted to make me an example to everyone else, to say to them, you go that route, you see what happens. So people become disempowered. I was coming, before you asked me that question, which was an important one, I was coming to this situation that we see on social media today. When you raise these issues, you raise the issue of the rand value manipulation. Even what came out yesterday and today about the terrible situation in our courts and our legal system that's been corrupted, that report from intelligence.
Well, I've been talking about it, although I was shut up. They were going to arrest me for saying
No, but go and see what the responses on social media are from people. They say, nothing will happen. They will just manage it. They will continue. So people feel disempowered. Now, the question that needs to be asked is, at which point is that disempowerment going to change over to such anger and desperation that we then end up in a situation of self-help. And Tshepo refers to self-help almost every time on our X Spaces, saying, look, guys, if the system gets corrupted to the point where people become so cynical that they believe there is no possibility of justice, then what you described earlier, the guy will just take a kitchen knife and say, now I'm going.
And he doesn't even care what happens.
Whether I live or survive, because anyhow,
suicide.
my life is so terrible.
Yeah.
It's not worth actually living. So I'm just going to throw my body in there in the hope that I can achieve at least some change. That is the direction in which we're going. And when we raise these concerns and we say, but you have now corrupted the system to such a point where it no longer can do anything for the people. People are going hungry, as I've said. Then we raise this serious concern. You know, the consequences of it, when it happens, we see in the streets of Palestine.
Exactly.
War is not something beautiful.
That's where it ends.
War is terrible. Bloodshed, children's limbs being blown off. That is the future that we will head into if this situation continues. And that is why each one of us, if we are patriots in South Africa, have a responsibility to stand up, speak out against these things, take serious this issue of the manipulation of the value of the rand, because, you know, at the end of the day, it comes down, and you are a very practical man, and I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Because you always talk about the real life issues. You immediately came in and raised the issue of the price of bread.
Yeah.
This morning, someone sent me a message on my X space, and they said, you know, we lost our houses because of this thing.
Yes, yes.
Because as the value of the rand falls, as we get more and more increase in inflation,
Yes.
as we get now the price of the bond going up and up, more and more people lose their homes. And Tshepo knows we've run many spaces, how the banks use that situation, how the banks use the increase in the interest rate to cheaply get hold of those properties and get people out of their properties. It is a disaster.
Why would the Reserve Bank, okay, we can see it's more and more blunt. The Reserve Bank would say something like, no, Mr. Ramaphosa's money was cleared, there was no problem with it. I mean, even...
An imperfect transaction.
Yeah, but even a 6-year-old child will know that is
a
wrong.
load of poppycock.
So what's happened in the meantime is, whilst these, I don't even know what to call them anymore, let's just try and be polite for the moment. Let's say these people are manipulating the masses. The masses have become so used to being manipulated and actually kapitaleer, nee?
Yeah,
Hulle gee net oor.
Yeah.
Hulle gee oor because this is becoming too hard. I've seen it with myself with this fight since 2004 to get the mineral wealth in the hands of ordinary people, just to get permits. Yeah. I'm not saying take over the world. I'm just saying give the Zamas a permit. Why do you want illegal mining? Whilst you can make it legal and then get taxes from it.
Exactly.
But you won't. You will see the opposition coming in with the army and the police and whatever. Now, of course, those people become more agitated and become more violent. It's you creating the people.
Yes.
You creating.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So I've seen with this opposition that I'm having now, I don't want to talk about that because it's a bit off topic. But at the same time, I've seen what the diamond price has done. First of all, it went very well. The diamond price went up since 2008 because that was a tumble of 75%. Now it went up nicely, and then the manipulation of the rand started. Now, our production at the mine, we could have sold for $550, $450 per carat. We're selling at $85 per carat at the moment. We've been lucky last month or last week to sell $152. It's at a third of the value. And that's exactly what the manipulation did.
Of
It
the
is a
rand
third.
does.
We're paying 3 times more for a product from overseas to try and get it here because we're a net importer. Eventually, the middle class will be wiped out.
Yes.
And that's why you would find the big people being caught out with money in their drawers. Money on planes. You would remember that. I don't want to mention names, but the big Afrikaner that was called with $9 million or something in the plane. If
At
that
London
happens to
Airport
you,
at Heathrow.
yes, but if that happens to you and me,
But apparently I had quite a lot in Switzerland too.
we will still be in jail by now.
Yeah.
If they catch me, I mean,
Of course.
I had a very interesting story. Now, the SARS, they are great friends because, you have to be friends with SARS. And that's one thing. I mean, ons kan windgat wees, maar jy moet nie tot daai extreme windgat wees nie, because they've got total control. So they raided my house in 2021. And they took money from all over and diamonds and so on. Diamonds that I didn't even know was there. You sort of lose track. So I thought normally you would leave 10,000 rand in the safe, and then the stuff is somewhere else, like that. But there was a miscommunication between me and my girlfriend at the time, and so they saw, and they were packing out these diamonds like rows and rows and rows of jewelry and diamonds on my kitchen table. Okay. And I'm looking and I'm totally surprised. And I think they must have seen, I'm surprised. I didn't know it's there. It's like new to me. It's like new Christmas, And I'm looking at this. And now, the story about wreck the point to make the point. So by the time they were finished and they had all these millions, let's say 10 or 11 or 15 million, even Kruger rands, they found there somewhere that I didn't know was there. And they put it all on the table. And I started to laugh. And there's now 30 policemen and SARS people around me. And I started to laugh, and they think, now, what's so funny about this? First of all, they thought it was my phone that I tried to dump, but I forgot that I installed 8 new cameras. So the cameras showed the guys that I was throwing my phone in the bush. Okay. The only reason I threw my phone in the bush because I had a picture of my naked new girlfriend on my phone. It's too much information.
Well, they would just
use
that against you.
Yes, they do. But now, the interesting part of this is, then I got to where the Gaza soldier is, where the Gaza child, where the Gaza father, where the South African father of his child that cannot get work, that cannot get education. You know what I did? When they walked out, I said to them, listen, whoa, stop please. There's another 580,000 in that cupboard and 73,000 in that cupboard that you did not see. And I've got a money printing machine in my garage, which is obviously not so, because I'm saying money is in your head.
Yes.
You print it, yeah.
Yes.
So I walked there and I said, this is the machine. This long story to tell our distinguished guests and our people listening here. If our people, and we're talking about children here, we're talking about youth between the ages of 15 and 23, 25, even 30 now, not getting a job because of the rand manipulation. But they are not able to pin it to that because, just globally thinking, you would not make the connection, the ordinary citizen wouldn't make the connection between the 2001-2002 manipulation, and because the law, justice is no more justice, this happened in 2015, and now 8 years later, they are now facing, for the first time, the papers. Yeah. Maybe a disgruntled media operator. I don't know how this came about this time. And now suddenly it's in front of the courts. And it's like old news. Yeah. It's been happening all the time.
The damage has been done.
It's been
the
going
damage
on
has been
for
done.
decades.
So now my question to you, we know this, Carl, and I recall a picture of you at Parliament, and who was it, Zizi Kodwa, or who made a statement about you? Sorry if I use the wrong name now.
No, it's the right name.
Is it? made a
It
statement.
was Zizi Kotwa
Just-
who walked out of
Oh,
Parliament
yes,
yes.
because I was protesting
Yes.
about what was about to happen
Yeah.
in that Parliament because they were going to vote against the report of the imminent panel
Yes.
that was saying that Ramaphosa has got a serious prima facie case to answer.
Yes.
And Zizi Kotwa walked out and called the commanding officer of the police outside Parliament and pointed at me and said, "Move him."
Yeah.
And as like a straight line from that instruction, he came, instructed his people to start attacking us. I was assaulted there. It's on
I saw it. I saw
on
it. And nothing
television,
happened,
live,
obviously.
on video. I was hit by perspex shields with batons. And at some point, I turned around and I looked at them and I said, "This is enough. Now you can kill me here.
Yeah.
But further, you're not pushing me because I've got the right to be here and express my view like every other citizen." Because just across the road, Ramaphosa had his own renter crowd,
Yeah.
which they brought there to come and give support to this
Like
farcical
they've done
vote
at the conference.
that
as well.
was going to happen inside Parliament. Nothing happened to them. They were left there. They were left right on the perimeter of Parliament to make their point, while we were bashed and pushed away and all of those things. But you see, at the end of the day, the point to be made here is they will continue to push us. And there will be a population, of course, that suffer deeply, that may not necessarily make the connection between these big international manipulation games of the value of the rand, etc., etc. But they feel it in their stomachs. They see their children going under. They see that there is no future. And you can become hopeless up to a point. But there is a point, Louis, as certain as the three of us sit here today, that hopelessness will switch over into action, anger, frustration. Because at the end of the day, remember, you can negotiate many things. You can't negotiate hunger.
Yeah.
When you need to eat, you must eat. Otherwise, you die. And more people are reaching that point. And it's that point of desperation that is, if we are not careful, going to determine the future of this country. And that desperation will be a violent reaction. The consequence of this kind of action taken by heartless people who think like Zizi Kotwa, that they can push people away, they can oppress them, they can throw them into the garbage bin. But they are sorely mistaken. Eventually, it will come back, and it will come back with a vengeance at them. In the same way it happened in the French Revolution when Marie Antoinette said, "Oh, if they don't have bread, give them cake."
Yeah.
That same phenomena, which is not something new, but which is very human and very real, will happen here in this country.
What must we do next? I think...
Tshepo, I was thinking about you being an economist and a specialist in energy. I mean, what a combination. I don't know whether we've got that in this country. I mean, just to see how the Minister of Electricity is struggling. I mean,
he should not be struggling, by the way.
That's a bit of an anomaly there.
He should not be struggling. Because I've been telling them since 2015 what they should
do,
but they can't
tell
comprehend.
They cannot comprehend what must be done. Because I think people would like to know.
But before Tshepo tells you, we have a treasure in Tshepo.
Yeah, I know.
We have, as you quite correctly say, a unique combination of an energy expert and an economist.
Yeah.
But Tshepo, like so many other people, and that comes back to that pushing away of people who actually really want to make a positive contribution. I wasn't there in front of Parliament because I just wanted to be difficult. I was raising the red flag. Guys, if you undermine the legal system in this way, if you use your majority in Parliament to just push away this seminal report by three eminent legal people, You are destroying this country. You're destroying the legal system. Now, Tshepo does the same. He talks out. He's got the expertise. He could have been of great value to the Minister of Energy or any of this government. But instead, they've pushed him away. Instead, they disregard him. They don't hear the great knowledge that he has. Tshepo.
Yeah, look, on the issue of the rent manipulation, I think what we need to do, I was saying this on SABC earlier today, even on our X space, we need to institute civil and criminal charges against the banking cartel CEOs and their foot soldiers.
Yes.
In the US courts.
Yeah.
Because the manipulation of the rent was done against the US dollar.
Yes.
And Parliament of South Africa over the years, since the Rent Commission 2001, 2002, they have failed and or refused to promulgate legislation that would make it a serious criminal offense with a minimum sentence, prison sentence, for anyone guilty of manipulation
that came
of the currency.
2016, if I'm right, eh? Was that over there?
In the US, yes, 2016, yes.
But we haven't got legislation.
We don't have
like
legislation. We failed or refused to promulgate legislation. I think it's more, both because of corruption.
Yes.
More like refusal.
So, but because the United States has been progressive in having passed legislation, once the CEOs of these banks are aware of the serious risk of being imprisoned in the US and also being put on the OFAC list. OFAC stands for Office of Foreign Assets Control, but it's actually sanctions. Which, by the way, Ramaphosa must be put on that list. For the Matras Bank. He must be put on that list. Because he fits, his crime fits exactly the punishment that is stipulated in terms of...
Would they have jurisdiction in South Africa, though?
They would have jurisdiction because of the currency. Once you use a US dollar...
Then you use a US dollar,
in America, basically.
You've committed a crime.
Yes. So, and like unless we prepare meticulously a case to be filed in the US courts in New York, in the state of New York, they will feel emboldened to continue. As I was making a case that it is not the first time that these banks in concert have been found to be manipulating. And they also know that, well, 10% is what I tell you my turnover was. But is that truly what was the turnover? That's why Standard Chartered can pay 43 million and hope that everything else goes away. But once you can be able to bring a case in the US courts, and that will, to a large extent, give us a breathing space to allow that after next year's national elections, with the new parliament, one of the jobs that they must get on to doing is to ensuring that there is a bill which is processed to ensure that there is minimum prison sentence for any of the executive. Corporate crimes in this country are not punished to the extent that they should be.
The employees take the brunt and then,
well, it's just kind of like a rap on the knuckles.
It's like on the army.
Today, if you look at it, well, who are these persons that worked in this, that received bonuses? Which is the point I made when Maria Ramos said, when she was CEO of ABSA, that she's sorry. And I said, that's nonsense. She was the one who was paying the bonuses to these currency traders. So what did she think she was paying bonuses for?
But now they're sitting with Old Mutual and everything.
Yes.
I mean, if that's one thing I wanted to allude to is that the shareholders of the banks, you can actually go and look, and those are the same people manipulating the rand. The same people manipulating industry. The same people looking at gold, silver, diamonds, and all these things that you're talking about. It is the same crowd and that's where you go And I said to you, let's not talk about white monopoly capital. It is just monopoly capital. It is not even white anymore.
Yes,
It is one of the things, and I say to Carl very often, the politicians have been very, very clever and pitting us against one another so that we cannot see the wood from the trees. Obviously, we can't deny the past and all that. That's not the issue. What I'm trying to say is, if you look at rand manipulation, it's got no color. It affects everybody the same.
My dear comrade here,
Yeah.
he disagrees with me. And
Yes.
I understand why he disagrees with me. If the Nationalist Party government
Yeah.
had not misread the Bible,
Yes.
they would still be in power today.
No, exactly. Because
I tell you what, because they understood Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, they did.
So it is no accident that they promulgated foreign exchange controls in 1963,
Yeah.
because they understood what the British had
Yeah.
done
Exactly.
and the harm
Yeah.
that the British had caused to the economy,
Yeah.
and the necessity of moving away from the pound sterling
Yeah.
to the rand.
Yes.
They understood the importance of investing 16% of the GDP into the productive, in fact, economic infrastructure.
Yes.
Between the years 1963 and 1976,
Yeah.
that was the investment. 16% of the GDP was invested
amazing.
in. So everything here, whether it's Jan Smuts Airport, which is not far from here,
Yeah.
now called
OR
Tambo,
Tambo, yeah.
correctly so.
Yeah.
But this international airport,
Yeah.
the road, whether it's R21, R24, N1, N4,
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
was planned, constructed.
Yeah.
Those were the golden years.
Exactly.
And the currency up till 1983
Yeah.
was actually, the rand was stronger,
Then the dollar.
because
Yeah.
that time we were still in the gold standard,
Correct. Yeah.
and we were the largest producer of gold.
Yeah.
But at the time, nobody even cared that we had so many other resources that would be needed in the future.
Yes.
So, but
The focus was gold.
But the Afrikaner,
Yeah.
had the right mindset
Yeah.
in terms of what this country required.
Yeah.
Now, for anyone within the African National Congress to not understand the words of Oliver Tambo, who says, we must learn to tell the truth to ourselves,
Yeah.
even if the truth is the same position or the knowledge of the enemy.
Exactly.
So we might have been during apartheid fighting
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
legitimate reasons,
Yes.
but where the Nationalist Party did right, we should have continued.
Yeah.
For example, having the marketing boards, whether
Yeah.
it's grain, whether it's meat,
Yes.
whether it's any of this,
Protecting
those
your producers.
were ensuring that we can protect
Yeah.
our producers.
Yeah.
And we moved away from that. We made the rand to be free fall. We then took the Reserve Bank and got the private banks to be on the board of the Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
The current governor, the previous governor, all of them are nothing but glorified clerks.
And then we know that.
Because without
Yeah.
this private sector,
Yeah.
who hold a very minority shareholding in the Reserve Bank,
Yeah.
so the Reserve Bank cannot investigate the banks it has licensed to trade in foreign currency.
Yes.
So even when they manipulate, the Reserve Bank cannot act, because the very same manipulators sit on the
They sit
board
there, yeah.
of the South
It's
African
their
Reserve
mate.
Bank. The man we spoke of, Martin
Yeah.
Kingston,
Yeah.
he is the leader of the gang that appoints all the other private sector directors who sit on the board of the Reserve Bank.
Amazing.
So when they increase interest rates, notwithstanding the failure, interest rates are a blunt tool
Yeah.
in terms of, for example, the Reserve Bank ordinarily should have been buying bonds
Yeah.
by the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the Industrial Corporation of
Yes.
South Africa, the New Development Bank,
Yes.
who would then go and do specified lending into the productive sectors of the economy,
Yeah.
and then let the interest rates to which they then set the interest rate for the private banks.
Yeah.
But they should not have then left the creation of money because they use fractional reserve banking,
Correct.
which is nothing new,
Yeah.
except now it has been misused and abused to our detriment.
Yeah.
But the Reserve Bank ordinarily, the law as currently stands, allows the Reserve Bank to be able to buy a ESCOM bond directly.
Yes.
Because it's a state-owned company.
Yes.
But in order for the Reserve Bank to take such a decision, you need the 15-member board of the Reserve Bank to agree.
Yeah.
And 7 of the 15 board members are representatives of this cartel of the banking mafia.
The private ones.
So therefore,
Yeah.
it becomes a dysfunctionality.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, let's talk about Standard Bank, for example. If I was a shareholder of Standard Bank, of course, I would be pleased. It delivered record profits just about 2 months ago.
Yes.
The most profitable of all the banks in the country.
Yeah.
And when you look at what are the areas that they've been profitable in, they have not been profitable from real business.
An
they have
industry.
been profitable because they are in the gambling pool.
Yes.
And that has not served the economy of this country.
Yeah.
We are now, I believe, number 18 largest gold producer from having been number 1 for more than 100 years.
Yes.
We're number 1 gold producer.
Yeah.
And we are not able to manufacture anything in this country.
Yeah.
We have deindustrialized this economy to the extent that earlier you and I were talking about a fertilizer,
phosphate.
input, phosphate.
Yeah.
If you are a farmer, any of the farmers listening,
Yeah.
they know how much they paid for phosphate this year.
Yes.
So with the weaker rand against the US dollar, and with the phosphate prices in US dollars that have quadrupled 4 times, they've gone up 4 times in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, they've gone up 4 times.
Yeah.
So you can now imagine with the currency that has weakened to such an extent, plus the price input that has gone up, how many of the farmers are able to actually go and ensure food security for this nation?
Well, they don't plant. I've seen
They are not able to,
They don't want to plant. Apart from the fact that the land bank has been taken away as security. And as far as I understand it, and I must say I'm not an expert, the security that the state has provided to the land bank was taken away.
Yes,
there was some
unfortunately.
corruption taking place. I'm not sure what happened there. But I've seen, and I deal a lot with farmers, obviously. I've been a farmer myself up to 2015. Most people don't know about it. But what I've seen is that, and I must be very careful when I talk about liquidators at this time as mafia, but what you see in the banking sector, there's a cartel of liquidators, attorneys, and the state bank, the land bank, that is not fulfilling its mandate to protect food security.
Yes.
And you know about Petrus that I'm walking with and helping him to talk about the murder of farmers. But the murder of farmers is taking place on an economical level.
Yes.
If you do not supply your farmer with finance, and it's a big issue, Tshepo, because if we want to bring up, I've had a farmer in Lichtenberg, next door to me, Daniel. He got a loan from the IDC or somewhere. I'm not sure whether it was PIC or IDC, but he got a loan for, let's say, 5 million. I can't remember the exact. So the first day he started planting, and I was watching him. I'm not a practical farmer. Ek boer net van my quadbike af, né? So I had feedlots of 2,500 cattle and a few and stoete and sulke goeder. So I could see what was happening. And he was planting 7-row mealies. In other words, like, and I'm thinking to myself, you're never going to make a profit. So I sent my foreman, I sent over to him and I said, Daniel, please, Louis says, can he please help you? And he helped Daniel, and Daniel at least. But then at the end of the season, he was selling his tractors, he was selling his, on the stoep daar so, in front of his house. And I went there and I said, please, what are you doing? No, he doesn't think. And then again, my foreman took his hand and said, "Listen, don't sell. Just hang in there. You're gonna. And sometimes you're gonna have a good season, sometimes not. If you bring in new farmers, black farmers, people that want to learn the industry, they've only been used to 1 hectare of farming. They did that productively, but to be a mega farmer is something totally different. Therefore, you've got the state intervening, helping these people, but you don't have the land bank behind these people. Commercial banks don't understand farming. They really don't understand. Well, sectors maybe now.
They do make money, but it was Thomas Jefferson of the United States who said that the United States was a republic that is meant for God's greatest creature, the American farmer. And it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who then said he foresaw, because he came in during the Great Depression as president. And one of the things that he did, to this day, they still are ruling us. I understand that as a former banker who leased businesses, the U.S. Securities Exchange of 1933. It was passed during the 100 days where Congress had no input.
There was no input. There was no infighting there.
But to this day, because it was a good law.
I think the best laws are just like those that they push through.
But one of the things that he saw was that of coast to coast, having networks of electricity, pipelines, making sure there is water, making sure there is electricity, making sure that there is manufacturing. It is therefore no coincidence that the levels of exports, that today they are exporting chicken to us.
To Brazil, you're talking about now. Americans are.
The Americans,
even South Americans are.
Yes. They said you can bring your goods in here on the AGOA, but you must take some of our chicken from the Midwestern states. Because of that vision. Now, the reason I mention in the U.S. is because the Nationalist Party, when they came in, they didn't deviate too much from Jan Smuts. Because Jan Smuts was influenced by the American. I mean, he was an international statesman. And pretty much what he saw happen in the U.S., he wanted to bring here. That's why he had people like Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl. One of the greatest industrial minds ever have walked the face of this earth.
He's just started everything.
Even though he died the year after the Nationalist Party took over, Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl. But the Nationalist Party took everything that Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl had planned and implemented it. They never deviated from it. Because at the end of the day, they were still informed by that we must be a sovereign republic, we must be independent as a nation, so that sovereignty can only be achieved from independence and economic independence. It's one such. And then you use what you have, the greatest wealth that this nation has, you use it to your advantage. So when they passed the exchange controls, they did not warn some of the people that, hey, by the way, the Oppenheimers were not. So if you read the book, the South Africa Incorporated, the Oppenheimer Empire.
I read that.
And you understand what Hendrik Verwoerd, he detested them. But when you look at the reasons why he detested them,
basically,
you then understand that, yes, we could come to the point where we've now come to where we've settled to say, but hold on a second, all of us, we are in this country. And we should be able to live in harmony, in freedom, in peace, and be allowed to prosper. Regardless of our color, it must be based on our character. That we can be able to prosper.
Absolutely.
So that we could get to. But when it came to where even Hendrik Verwoerd's ideology was that of say, we cannot go and have this secret society type of people who take over everything for themselves and then control of the people.
It's extremely dangerous.
It is extremely dangerous.
What we're seeing now is the aftermath
and it's over the
of
years.
that.
I mean, Carly has made a reference to what the Menels have done, that in Cyril Ramaphosa we have our insurance. And lo and behold, he's not even shy about it, that his agenda is not for the people of this nation.
Exactly.
If a country was led by good leaders,
Yeah.
the Competition Commission should have been enabled, amongst others, should have been given legislative tools
Yeah.
to have powers to be able to not only
Make a finding.
have a fine,
Yeah.
but also to criminally prosecute.
Yeah.
The Competition Commission is limited from then going and filing criminal charges against these banks, who at the end of the day, because they are not using their money, so they will continue for their greedy profiteering.
Yeah.
At the same time, to advance the ultimate aim. The ultimate aim is to collapse everything so that we pick it up on the cheap.
Yeah.
And then you and I, it matters not how good we might be at anything. We will not be able to have ownership, because then everything will be in the hands of this very totalitarian fascist minority that is not for you or I, but is for themselves. So a number of things that we must do, as I say, this one, I'm very serious about it, that we have to find a way of approaching the US courts so that we file criminal charges, and by and large ensure that these CEOs of these banks, who are being paid handsomely, at the very least, they must lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Because if they lose their jobs, they will not be at the tiller. They will not be in control to continue to exert economic harm. If they can eventually be convicted and jailed, then we would have achieved. But at the very least, is to move to such an extent that all of them, they must resign, because the buck stops with them, and the harm that they have exerted on this economy of this country. Today, we have over 30 million South Africans that are on social grants. We have 30 million South Africans who live on less than $1 a day. And by the way, it's no longer, there was a time where we thought,
the DRC, we thought about the DRC, Africa.
We were making a joke that in 1996, in DRC, you had to be a currency trader. Because if you go to a restaurant to eat, true story.
No, I was there.
The currency, the exchange will be there.
Yeah.
So you decide whether you want to pay after you've eaten or before you eat.
Yeah, because
it depends on how you feel. If you're feeling bullish, you pay at the end of the meal. If you are feeling bearish, you pay.
I was in Zimbabwe at the time. I could only draw $50 at the bank.
Yes.
You couldn't draw more.
Yes, that's right.
And by the time you walk to the bank, from where you heard what the currency is, it changed dramatically.
Yes.
But I want to come back to this issue, and I don't want to belabor it because it's not necessary.
Yeah.
This issue of white monopoly capitalism and comprador capitalism.
Yeah.
You see, I don't think we have really a fundamental disagreement. I think the issue is an understanding of the history where we come from and the role that white monopoly capitalism has played in this country.
Yeah.
And the way it is actually still continuing to exert a very, very negative influence.
We agree on that.
We agree on that. Now, with regards to what the National Party and the Afrikaners were doing from 1948 onwards, is they understood the importance of a state that must lead. They also understood the importance of our state-owned enterprises. And that's where Tshepo is referring to Van der Bijl and the work that he did with ISCO, which sadly we've lost. It's been privatized and all of those things. Now, it is no coincidence that when we reached the negotiations in 1991 and the process that happened from there, there was a very deliberate plan from mainly white monopoly capitalists to change the face of how South Africa is going to function. and to weaken the government, to remove thus the developmental role of the state.
We agree.
You can see it
Yeah.
in the way the Constitution came about.
Yeah.
You can see it in the way in which neoliberal economic policies were introduced.
Yeah.
So exactly what Hendrik Verwoerd was fighting against in the early 1960s when he said these Oppenheimers and these guys are trying to take control of my country.
Yeah.
They're trying to remove the ownership of the means of production from the state and from state-owned enterprises into their private hands.
Yes.
They saw a great opportunity in the negotiating process to prepare the ground to achieve that.
Yeah.
And since then, we have seen that plan being unfolding. The only time when that plan was a little bit put on a hold, but it wasn't possible to stop it, was during the 9 years of President Zuma. And that is why these private sector guys are constantly referring, and their mouthpiece, which is Cyril Ramaphosa, referring to the 9 wasted, lost years, because they feel it was a setback.
Yeah.
They couldn't move as fast as they wanted. For them, of course. And they couldn't move as fast as they wanted to.
Yeah.
What we see now is the speeding up of that process of full privatization, removing the means of production from the hands of the state, destroying our ability to have a developmental state, destroying the state's ability to give the lead to economic growth. And that is why there had to be a clause in the Constitution to circumscribe the role of the South African Reserve Bank so that it will be simply an inflation targeting tool to avoid it being able to play the role of economic growth, development, and job creation, because that would have pushed back against this plan of full privatization. Now, the point that Tshepo is making, and this is a critical point, is we need to act decisively against these people. And we need to be able to do so by taking action in the United States of America, because the rand was manipulated against the value of the dollar, as he's described. I don't need to repeat that. Now, Areta and the UDM and the PAC and the EFF, all of us are now working together in terms of taking action in the United States against these rand manipulators. And we had a very good space where the deputy president of the UDM, who is a banker himself, he came from the banking side of the industry, Kwankwa. He is going to help us to lead that process. But I met with some of them since that space that we had, and we are going to proceed to take legal action in the US. Now, that's the first step. And it's a decisive step because we must make them responsible. There must be accountability. To come to the second step that Tshepo is referring to, and that is, what are we going to do when we gain power? We hope to be able to do so in next year's elections, where we have to rewrite the legislation to prevent this kind of thing from being able to continue, to put laws in place that will make it a criminal offense to the point where people can be imprisoned when they manipulate the rand, and to take action to remove those private shareholders from the South African Reserve Bank, and critically important, Louis, to create a state bank. A state bank is a very important counterbalance against these privateering big banks and the way in which they are now running roughshod throughout our economy. So for me, those are the important steps. But the critical thing is, are we going to, and this is the challenge that I also want to ask Tshepo to respond to, are we going to be able to convince a deeply cynical and deeply hurt voting public in South Africa to come out to vote next year to empower us in order to be able to achieve this objective. Yeah. Because if we fail to do so, and these guys continue to manipulate their way back into power, and we have another term of Cyril Ramaphosa as president, perhaps now even with the DA as his alliance partner, we are heading exactly for that disaster.
Much difference between the two at the moment.
No, there's no difference. Yeah. But they will become the power nucleus that will then continue this process of privatization, this process of destroying the central role that the state has to play for development. If that happens, that is the point where we're going to end up in the disaster that we referred to earlier, where eventually the people of this country will say, well, there's no other hope for us but to stand up. Now we're going to have an outright violent revolt against it, because otherwise I'm going to die anyhow. My stomach is empty. So, Tshepo, I don't know. Do you think we will be able to achieve that? Or is that a dream that is beyond what we can achieve?
Look, I think voter apathy is the biggest risk. My worry is that we will have a government and parliament which has been elected by the minority who participated in the election.
And it's not representative of the people.
It's not representative. So people have become despondent. They have become apathetic. They're not interested.
But the consequence of that is that we may have a continuation.
My daughter, she just graduated from university last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She looks at all of this. A family, multi-generational of activism. She looks at all of this. She thinks, I have no interest. My second daughter, she will be eligible to vote the next election. She's not convinced. When I was their age, I understood
you went for
the importance. And I wanted to be able to participate. So I think they just represent the majority of the feeling.
But what you described there is exactly what I had with my 26-year-old daughter. I spoke to her last week. And she looks at me, she says, good luck, Dad, but I'm out.
What must I vote for?
I'm not going to vote.
So that is the one risk. But I think one of the things that we should do, and we've spoken about this, Carl, you and I, before, we need to, at the same time that we are pressing for this for this criminal gang to be prosecuted,
to be dealt with,
we need to speak to one man called Johan Rupert.
The CEO.
Because I don't tell you why. Because he's 70 years old now?
Yeah, but older.
Yeah, but he's the most important. Him and Stephen Kosef must be 72.
And they're both roughly the same age.
So Stephen Kosef is a Jew. So one of the things at his age you'll start worrying about is how will posterity look like for him. Johan, his father Anton started Compagnie de Richmond, Rembrandt.
I met him once. I was very fortunate.
1943. And all of that legacy can be destroyed now by their complicitness, meaning where they're complicit in, scheming.
But they are.
They need to stop from being schemers. But at the same time, we need to say to them, yes, we understand that you control most things. This is what I think was made by one of his companies. So you must say, look, we understand that. But everything can go up in smoke. You can leave, but when you leave, you can't take the vineyard. You can't take the Unilever factory here in Boksburg or in Durban. You can't take or Malelan. You can't take the sugar estates. There is none of that. Yes, you can fly in your Global 600 aircraft, magnificent aircraft. But that's it.
Exactly.
The rest you're going to leave here. And that which we saw happen in the so-called July unrest,
Yes.
which was over 4 days.
Yeah. Can happen for a year.
If it happens for 10 days,
Yeah. It's finished.
everything that you ever had
Yeah.
will be lost forever in a day. So as much as you are lured by the prospect of now finally owning everything, including owning Eskom, owning Transnet, and owning everything that controls our lives, affects our life. Just think of it. Anybody who's within the borders of this country is reliant on Eskom.
Yes.
Without Eskom, their life comes to a standstill.
Exactly.
So, therefore, when you control that, it was the US politician Henry Kissinger who said, if you want to control a people, you must control food.
Yeah, food and energy.
And if you control a nation,
yeah,
you control energy.
Yeah.
So
that's
we understand on why they are going that, but we need to have a conversation with them of warning them that, in fact, one of the campaigns, and I've been saying, Comrade Mbagazi, that we need to do that. We need to tell the reinsurers and the insurers of their businesses to say, you
better think about your
these
premium.
People here, no, beyond your, you need to, there is going to be a massive claim that comes, which you're going to have to repudiate, but maybe you need to exempt them from cover. You know, last year, or beginning of this year, last year I started warning that the grid of this country is about to collapse.
Yeah.
And then the political class said, forget that guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the insurance companies, the American embassy, the stock exchange,
they took note.
They knew what I was talking about. The insurance companies from April 1, and it was no April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
On April 1, they exempted any grid collapse-related claim.
Wow.
So if the grid collapses, you can't make a claim to any of the insurance.
Yeah.
And we need to move at the same speed to ensure that this group that we've identified, of this minority.
Yeah.
And when we say white monopoly, they don't regard you as white, by the way.
I want to touch
this
on that
minority.
Point. Yes.
We need to have that campaign. As much as we are in the cause, we need to have a campaign whereby if they have got no insurance, they will act responsibly.
Yes.
Because right now they know that they have got insurance cover, and as a result, they have been acting without fear of losing anything of material themselves. And the question that must be asked of you, Rupert, do you want to go down history as the man who single-handedly destroyed the legacy of your father? Is that how you want your grandchildren to remember you?
There's a few things I want to say.
But there is something, sorry, Louis.
Yeah.
I hear what Tshepo is saying, and I understand the need for a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be a conversation where we come with a big stick and put it on the table.
Yeah.
Because these guys, we are not going to have a nice chat and convince them because they're such good people, because they're not.
No, exactly.
We must
they don't know it yet.
We must put them in front of a situation that they cannot refuse. And that is going to be the only language that they understand. The moment they think that they can still have an escape clause, they will go for it. And therefore, I like the idea of what Tshepo is referring to, remove all insurance cover for them. But at the same time, explain in very clear terms what the consequences will be when the population of this country has had enough and it rises, and all of this will go up in flames. Because ultimately, what I want them to be in a situation that they've got no other option but to make a sensible decision that can save the country. That is the only option. In fact, it mustn't be an option. It must be the only thing on the table that they can take. And if they refuse to do so, then they must feel the consequence. And the consequence must be severe for them. And that consequence we must implement if we have the majority vote next year. If we can get that, the consequence must be, guys, now the party ends. This privatization of resources comes to an end. You are going to be kept responsible, not just for what has happened now in the last 2 years, but for the whole period of exploitation of the people of this country, which includes not just black people, African people, but also the majority
Everybody.
of white people.
Everybody. They just
All
don't
of you
realize it.
are going to be on the line responsible for what you've done to the majority of South Africans, and we are not going to be soft on you. And that message is the critical one that we need to deliver. So whichever way we formulate our policy program for the future, whichever way we interpret what radical economic transformation means, it must mean that there will be a consequence which is decisive against these people who are destroying our country. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. We've got 2-3 minutes left. Gentlemen, I've been thinking a lot of things, and I recall me and Desi fasting and praying. Now, that's obviously, I'm not projecting that on anybody. Everybody's got their own choice of spirituality. But I was fasting and praying, and we had a few weeks of this, and for months on end, I was praying in my sleep, and Desi started recording that. And after a few months, she started playing that to me, and I was quite amazed. That was the time when I woke up and I said, I must go to Nkandla. You must remember, Tshepo, Afrikaans people think I'm mad to an extent, because what did I do? I broke the promise to God regarding Blood River and stuff like that to go and talk to the Zulu king. You must understand where people are at the moment. And you can't blame them because of all this that has happened to the economy. Obviously, the Boere is saying at the moment, the blacks did this to us. You know, if the ANC did not come into power, this would not have happened. Unfortunately, this would have happened anyhow, but people don't realize it.
Yes.
That's why I say to my brother, I say white monopoly capital is not the word I'm looking for, because Ramaphosa is white in that definition.
Yes.
He is part of a comprador capitalist working
Rupert,
with the white monopoly capitalists.
So you can take even Zikumalu, all the old guys that are sitting now there have forgotten the people. I sat in 2006, and I've been telling the story a lot of times, in Salute, that's just behind Nelson Mandela's statue in Nelson Mandela Square. I think there's another bar now there. And I bought, a 3.5 million rand whiskey, 2:00 in the morning to the ANC conference. I was there by accident. I was just sitting in the bar. And I don't drink, as you know. And I bought this whiskey for him and 6 of his friends. He was still at the ANC in the youth conference. Is it now 2007? I can't remember exactly. So we sat there, 2:00 in the morning, and he was speaking Afrikaans fluently. When you said Limpopo, I'm thinking, you better be able to speak Afrikaans. Yeah. Anyhow, and you can. You know that, Tshepo, that one day in heaven there will only be one language.
Yes.
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans.
Yes, it's the only language. It's going to be.
Then I'll be in good company.
I'm saying to my brother, and I've been saying in Rosebank to him, you know, Carl, this thing of white monopoly capital is the only thing I want you to change. If we can negotiate that. I understand where he comes from in the liberation struggle. I mean, it doesn't matter what, whether you're right or left, you know what's right. You know, it's a strange thing. You know, God's Spirit convinces you what's right or wrong. And I'm thinking, so the Afrikaans people have this thing of freedom. Hulle praat van 'n republikeinse strewe. They want their republics back, the Free State and Transvaal. They want that back. There's a lot of people fighting for that right now on groups. It's the biggest argument. It's the biggest argument on Afrikaans groups at the moment. Ons wil weer ons vier kleur vlag. We want a republic. That's not what they want. They want peace, harmony, a future for their children, energy supply, not load shedding. I mean, if you ask people to choose between the vier kleur and not having load shedding, I'm sure they will choose not having load shedding. And I'm thinking about this whole discussion of this afternoon, because what is the crux of the matter? I think that's the important thing. We will not survive this, and I dreamt this. I don't want to end on this dismal note, but I dreamt a terrible situation of our children's heads and arms lying in the street in blood in Pretoria and Johannesburg. and I've been talking about this. That drove me to Nkandla. At the moment, I'm very much misunderstood because I'm still a patriot. I'm still for this country, for the future. I fight for Afrikaans people. This weekend, I'm having a gala for our Afrikaans people. I think it's the 12th gala. It's costing a lot of money to further our language. I'm fighting for what I am, but at the same time realizing there's somebody across the table with the same wishes, the same dreams, and it's got nothing to do with color. The quicker we can get rid of the color issue, the quicker we will understand the future. It's not as though we ignore the past, but color doesn't change an economy. Color doesn't give you food. Color, and whatever we say about this, we need guts in this country. Yeah. We need to take hands across the table, even if we differ regarding apartheid or this or that. It is not the issues. The central issue is how we're going to survive. And you know what? When I saw those images, and you know, like, I'm not a prophet. I'm just an ordinary man. And I saw these things. And since 2004, I've been saying we better get control of our minerals. We better get control and give the people some control of the economic future. That image of a Palestinian that runs up to a soldier in the Israeli army and just try and stab him with a knife or a fork is an image that we are creating at the moment. We are dealing with a voiceless people. We are dealing once more with the 1976 crisis. We are dealing with Boy Patong right now, just in a different way. And because we've been blinded and pitched against one another, white, black, Indian, whatever the case may be, we are, because of our past, we have this one, what do you call it now? Ons het 'n ding oor ons oë getrek. Because we focus on that, we cannot see what is happening, and it's happening on an economic level. And the banks control us. Do you know what I hate most? Banks. I didn't say that before in the interview. Do you know that I don't have a bank account at the moment? All banks closed my bank accounts. Because if I make 70 million, they get nervous. Make 100 million, they freeze it. I don't have. I've got gold and silver and diamonds. And that's money. That's money. That's the new money. But I don't want to convince people not to have bank accounts.
No. The issue of bank accounts, I went to court.
Yes.
Yes. And we didn't really go as far as I should. I went to Parliament.
Yeah.
It was my comrades in the ANC who disagreed with me when they passed the law called Financial Intelligence Center Amendment Act. You are a victim of that.
Absolutely.
And I foresaw that at the time. And they said, no, we're dealing with the Gupta. And I told them, this law, South Africa, you are the first country to promulgate 666.
Yes.
Go and read the book of Revelation.
Exactly.
If you read the book of Revelation.
Yeah. Ezekiel even, that's exactly what's playing out now.
So that's what they then use that law to target those who are the perceived enemies of the state.
Yeah.
To arbitrarily shut your banking accounts.
Just without even telling you.
And then to declare your persona non grata.
Yeah.
And someday, I hope that somebody will go to the Constitutional Court to have that law.
I am going.
Effectively repealed.
Yeah.
To have been found to be unconstitutional, because it is unconstitutional. The Constitution is imperfect as it is, but on this particular point, it actually protects you.
Yes.
We made a big submission then in 2017 in Parliament on why it was wrong to promulgate this law.
Yeah.
And after it got promulgated, because they selectively apply it.
Yes.
That's why Cyril Ramaphosa still has got his banking accounts.
Exactly.
Notwithstanding that his patently criminal conduct.
Yes.
Violation of the exchange controls is criminal conduct.
Yes.
He has violated that. Notwithstanding his patently criminal conduct, his bank accounts have not been shut,
Yeah.
but South Africa has been grey listed.
Yeah.
Therefore, has put every one of us in danger.
Yes.
All because this bank
Because of that behavior. And nobody acts against
So
it.
we have been grey listed.
Yeah.
Had it not been that Cyril Ramaphosa was found to have stashed whatever foreign currency
Yeah.
without declaring it, and he shouldn't have accepted it except through a authorized dealer, that payment.
And Tshepo, let's just be logical for a moment. This is good humor if you think about it. So somebody pitches at your farm, you're not there. The manager's there, and he says, listen.
No, not the manager.
Yeah, just
lower than the
lower than the
holiday, yeah.
You know what? I think I might love some of these animals. I don't even think he saw them. And you know what? I'm going to leave here $580,000 with you, the president, being unaware. If it wasn't so ridiculous, it would have been extremely funny.
Oh yes.
And then they find it in a couch, and then it's now brought to the attention of the public. And now recently, the guys are not in Namibia anymore. The president is not involved of Namibia anymore. It's now the locals here that has to pay the price. A few guys that's now in court, in and out. You know, it reminds me, I was friends with F.W. de Klerk's son, very good friends,
Yes,
with
I knew
Jan.
him.
With
Yeah.
Jan,
Yeah.
not Willem.
Oh,
With,
sorry, I knew
with
Willem.
Jan,
I knew
the guy
Willem.
that stays in
Yes.
Ottosdal.
Yeah.
We stayed 80 kilometers away. When his mother was killed, I said, this is not going to be very popular, but I chose the mother side against FW because of a simple thing. She was always honest, truthful. I used to sing while she did her speeches around the country. And in Springs one day in the Civic Center, and we're going over time here, but I said to her when she got off stage, she was like scathing attack on FW. I said to her, Tannie Marika, this is getting dangerous. Now, I've often even came to the point of saying, you know, something strange happened because, I mean, there was somebody that took her for a dance classes because she was alone in that dolphin area. Doesn't matter. When things are so strange, nothing happens about it. And my neighbor, Busisiwe, what is her surname? I forget for the public protector, the PP.
Yeah.
It's too difficult a name for me.
Yeah.
You know, why isn't it Gert or Sunny, you know? And she's my next door neighbor, or 2 houses from me. Are you aware of it?
I'm aware.
And I'm looking at this thing that the wolf has now been made to look after
The sheep.
the chicken. What do you call it? Chicken pen.
All
This
the
is
sheep,
what's
yeah.
happening now. And all of us are going to suffer. So what this next election call is the most important election of the history of South Africa. I'm looking at the DA at 32%, they say, and the ANC at 38%. Doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense to me. But what I just want to end on a bit of a political note. Afrikaans people don't realize the danger of what's happening here. Okay. A multi-party democracy, okay, is something that has not worked. Or what do you call this? Sharing of power on municipal level?
Coalition,
what do you call it? Coalitions.
Coalitions.
Hasn't worked so far. But if we do not get an opposition that's going to say to the government, you will not overstep this mark, but with authority. The DA will not do that. They will not do that. As a matter of fact, I just want to touch on that for the sake of our listeners. If you take the ANC now as it was, and you see that people are going towards the DA, isn't it true that the person will stay more or less the same? Am I right or wrong now? So what you've got is infiltration of the DA to become the ANC. Am I right or wrong? So what happens to the opposition? Just a question that I would like to leave you. Who's going to oppose the banks? Who's going to oppose the bullies, the big shareholders? The JSE has got no impact on your and my life, let's be honest. Whether the share goes up and down, it doesn't change. 50% of the people don't even know about the stock exchange. Am I right or wrong?
It's a gambling pool.
It's irrelevant.
Derivatives that we're talking about. Share
Exactly.
prices go
And
up
options,
and down, but it's not
up and
new
down.
money that's coming into the economy.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But your point is that why will the Democratic Alliance increase in terms of percentage representation?
Yeah.
Voter apathy.
Yes.
It's not because they will gain new voters.
Yes.
It's just that as more voters stay away, the
They
ANC
look
suffers. But as the ANC suffers, Areta, ATM,
Yeah.
UDM, EFF, Freedom Front Plus,
Yeah.
everybody. Because if we cannot convince the DA voter, who's traditionally a Nationalist Party voter,
Yeah.
to go and vote for Freedom Front Plus,
Yeah.
then the DA, because by and large, majority of traditional Nationalist Party voters,
Yeah.
they are not apathetic. They diligently vote. We see
Yes.
this even during
Oh,
by-elections.
yes.
They show up in their numbers.
They're 80 and they're going to stand in the queue.
Others, for the other parties, 1994 came, great. 1996 we had local government, great.
Yeah.
Then from then on, after 2014, 2016 local government election,
Yeah.
that's when we saw a marked decrease,
Exactly.
that there is now voter apathy that has set in. And from 2016, 2019, 2021 local government election, and then 2024, we are seeing a downward trend
Yes.
that has made parties like the Democratic Alliance
Yes.
to appear to be growing,
But they're not.
but they're not growing.
Yeah.
It's just that they have managed to retain
Exactly.
and encourage their people to get back. What can new parties like the Areta do?
Areta, yeah.
They have to work doubly hard, but what they need
Yeah.
is a seat at the table,
Yeah.
because we are moving away from the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
All you need is a seat at the table,
Yeah.
because you can. I think the judiciary will be redeemed soon. We will get rid of Zondo
Yes.
because he's going to retire.
Exactly.
Hopefully, he will be booted out before, because
Yeah.
his appointment was irregular and he knows that.
We know
and
that.
he's not
I
a
mean,
man of integrity.
He was number 19 on the list or something.
Well, he had only 2 votes out of 23.
It's ridiculous.
So how do you become a chief justice? I mean, he has got no. The judiciary does not respect him, and he knows this.
Yeah.
But what kind of a character is that, where you know full well that you've got no gravitas?
And your peers don't even respect you.
But yet you agree to the position,
Yeah.
and that's why he's now busy doing a television show. You say, what kind of a justice is
He's
that?
now becoming a Trump.
A chief justice there's no chief justices must speak through, even all judges, they must speak through the judgments, not go to the media and make pronouncement. But I think that we will be able to get rid of the judges that are corrupt, totally corrupt, and restore the dignity and the standing of the judiciary. And once that is done, even if you got 2 or 3 seats in parliament as Areta, you can be able to turn the tables upside down, because what you need is a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So I think that is what is going to save the country. And whichever government that you have, eventually, whether it's a coalition government or it's one party that is in government, if you got a seat at the table and we've gotten rid of this corrupt judiciary, why are we saying they're corrupt? Well, they know this. 43 of the justices in this country have received money from the CR17 bank statements.
Yeah.
It's just that we are not allowed to make those bank statements public.
Yeah.
But if you forced me at gunpoint or on the dock,
then you get it.
Then of course I will prove, and I'll give their names, and not only how much they receive from CR17 or for how much they receive from all other places. So I'll prove the corruption. So I'm saying, you dare say to me here at gunpoint, I will not change my statement. Here in the court, I will not change my statement. That we've got a corrupt judiciary, confirmed even by none other than.
We all agree on that one.
Yeah, so we'll get rid of them, and then eventually,
Tshepo,
hopefully, we can have a seat at the table.
It's almost 20 past. Luckily, I know somebody that works at the station.
we are grateful for the airtime.
Luckily. Gentlemen, can I be brief and say this was an amazing discussion. Carl, Afrikaans people don't always understand my closeness to this brother, coming from totally different angle, political angle and whatever. And as we spoke, as we deliberated, as we grew, I've got so much respect for you. And I need people to know. I am getting so angry with the ANC because of what they've done to you. Basic integrity, basic honesty, and wat is die woord, deursigtigheid, transparency is lacking in our political system. And Tshepo, from the bit that I've had the privilege of dealing with you on his Twitter space, in deliberation with Dali Mpofu and so on, and also Dr. Paul Ngubeni, Afrikaans people were not exposed to this. Not if you come from a bit of a conservative background. And as I've been exposed to the mensch, to the people, to the blood in people like yourselves, it has made my life so much richer. And I pray that you don't only have success, Carl, Tshepo, in your field, in business, and the big role that you have to play. I mean, you're talking about listings on the stock exchange in America. Those are things that in 2007, I was about to list on the AIM, on the alternative investment market in London. And because of the 2008 drop, I couldn't complete it. Petra mining went through and I couldn't do it. Things like that. Life is about timing.
Yes, true.
Babies are born that way. And the timing of this discussion. But we need to continue this debate or discussion. It's not even a debate because we agree on most. And I would like to thank you. Just maybe a last words from both of you before we conclude. I see PW gaan ons nou teen die oor klap daarso.
Ek wil die laaste woord hê, so Tshepo,
please.
Yeah, I think it's been great. It was a pleasure.
Baie dankie.
Die Waarheid Radio om te spreek. I hope that next time we'll have feedback from the listeners, participants, and just to hear ordinary people, what is their view, and to challenge us if they.
Yes, I'm sure on Facebook it's going mad. I haven't even looked at it, obviously, but I'll show you.
I think that would be great. But it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Wonderful.
And the listeners must know that, yes, I spoke in English and I forced you to speak in English. But ek verstaan Afrikaans. Ek verstaan mooi.
Thank you so much,
Tshepo. Baie dankie.
Jy kan afsluit.
Dankie. Let me first of all say the quality of the leadership that we can have in South Africa if we get rid of the manipulation was on display here today. Here is one of the people who can be one of the great leaders of South Africa.
Absolutely.
You heard him today.
Sure.
You heard the quality of what he says. Nou wil ek iets in Afrikaans sê. Dit is presies 'n jaar gelede wat ek voor die ANC se nasionale dissiplinêre komitee aangekla is en waar ek geskort is as lid van die ANC. Ek is geskort omdat ek gesê het dat die regters in hierdie land en die regspraak in hierdie land gemanipuleer word en daarom dat ons regstelsel gekaap is. Dit was die hoofaanklag. En presies 'n jaar later kom daar 'n verslag van nasionale intelligensie wat elke ding wat ek gesê het bevestig. Nou in die laaste jaar, Louis, nadat ek geskort is, en miskien moet ek bietjie persoonlik wees, het ek deur hel gegaan. Ek het nie 'n inkomste gehad nie. Ek het letterlik baie keer in 'n situasie myself bevind waar ek gevrees het dat ek vir die volgende maand nie 'n dak oor my kop sal hê. En in die laaste jaar was daar een mens wat my gehelp. Jy. Een. Niemand anders. En daarvoor is jy verguis op die voorblaaie van 'n rapport, saam met die steun wat jy vir president Zuma gegee het. Daarvoor is jy allerhande name genoem. Die laaste naweek was my tweede oudste dogter baie siek. Sy het abses op die brein. Jy het dit vir my moontlik gemaak om Durban toe te gaan, om haar te gaan sien, om seker te maak dat van haar mediese kostes betaal kan word. Jy het 'n glimlag op Kanya se gesig gesit. Nou, ons sit hier as twee mede-Afrikaners en hier is 'n derde Afrikaner. Gee my jou hand. Ek hou
Alles
daarvan.
hier van Limpopo.
Ja.
Ons is saam. Ja, en ons kan praat oor die verlede van rasisme, oor wit kapitalisme, al die ding. Maar aan die einde van die dag moet ons 'n toekoms skep vir mekaar.
Ja.
En ek sê vir jou uit die diepte van my hart, baie, baie dankie vir wie jy is en vir wat jy doen. Maar nou wil ek afsluit. Ons almal saam moet weet wie ons vriende is en ons moet weet wie ons vyande is. Hier is ons vriende. Hier is die toekoms. Ek is baie duidelik dat wat Johan Roeper doen, wat Christo Wiese doen, is die vyandskap. En wat ek ook al gaan doen, as Aretta en ander politieke partye, selfs al kry ons nie die meerderheid. Ons gaan dit baie duidelik maak vir ons mense. Wie is vriend en wie is vyand? Want daai keuse, daai begrip van wie is vriend en wie is vyand, gaan uiteindelik bepaal of ons 'n toekoms het of nie. Ek het langs jou in 'n hof in Bloemfontein gaan sit. En ek het geweet, binne sekondes, hier is 'n vriend. Hier is 'n kring van vriende. Ons staan saam.
Ja.
Baie dankie.
Baie dankie.
Ja, ek het dit nou nie verwag nie, vriend, maar sjoe, wat 'n voorreg. Thank you so much. Tshepo, baie dankie, vriend. En jy is 'n vriend, 'n ware vriend. And whoever is a friend of Carl is a friend of mine. Luisteraars, baie dankie. En ja, Tannie Bok, ja, ek sien hoe gaan hulle daar te kere in die stede. Kat, alles. Ja, nee, we've got it. Baie dankie, julle het lekker geluister en dis altyd 'n voorreg om met julle te gesels. Ek sien hier's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mense in die studio. Hulle wil almal toebroodjies hê. Ons gaan nou eet. Moenie worry nie. Alles gaan alright wees. Cool it. Lekker aan vir julle, baie liefde.
Totsiens.
Vrede mag die Here vir julle seën. Tata.